Here we go. D.L. Hughley, welcome
Hey
back.
man, how you doing?
I'm great, man.
I
I'm
hope those
great.
fires didn't treat you too bad out in Calabasas.
Yeah, I mean, we both live in Calabasas,
Yeah,
and, I think we're both okay.
yeah. It was weird though, because the weird thing about those fires was they were very destructive and took a lot of lives. If it had happened anywhere in the country, you'd have seen telethons and Pray for California on people's avatars, but I think there's such an indifference that the people in California basically only had to pay. There was no Pray for California. Nobody had a concert. Everybody like, well,
No.
they are. If you looked on social media, you thought, oh, they're all rich and nobody cares. But people forget that up in Northern California, there were a lot of people who in Butte County, which is a very rural county. But it just shows you how divided we are as a nation. Where if you consider somebody to be doing well off, that you can't even give them a humane courtesy of praying. For prayer don't cost nobody nothing. But it was just this pervasive attitude, and I think a lot of it, is demonstrated by a president who comes rake your floors and rake the forest floors. It was just amazing to see just how totally indifferent people were.
Yeah, I mean, Trump even criticized I forgot which department it was.
Yeah, the forestry department.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he actually criticized the forestry department as people were dying and homes were being
missing.
lost and
Right.
firefighters were risking their lives. Like the fuck.
It's amazing to me that people don't seem to realize 60% of the produce consumed in America is grown in Southern California. It's grown in California, period. That without the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world, the United States of America would not exist without California. So you can play your little game. Well, to me, the problem in the country is that we have the Flintstones and we have the Jetsons, and the Flintstones are in charge. Like if you failed economically and educationally, why do you have so much to say into the future? When you have failed, then and you seem to be resolute in staying where you are, why are we even letting you have a hand in guiding the future? Like why? If you're in the Rust Belt and other parts of the country that are solid blocks of poverty and illiteracy and just unhealthy conditions, why are you the predicate, the best? I think that if you look at the power, most people live along the coast. Most of the economy is driven by the coast. Like if nobody's moving to your state, you should have less to say, not more.
Yeah, I think it was Maine was actually offering to pay off people's school loans if they actually
Right,
moved to Maine.
right.
Yeah.
Like you have all these monolithic groups that live in these places that abhor intellectualism or money, and they want the world to come back to them. Like if you live in certain parts of the country and industry is gone and you stay there, only white dudes think that they can live somewhere and make industry come. If you believe that opening coal mines and having factories come back is the way to make America great again, you don't need a president. You need a time machine.
Right.
You don't
Pretty much,
like
right?
your whole problem could be solved by a couple of months at DeVry, but you want to dig coal mine. It's so silly to me.
I feel you.
And then you don't want anybody come there. Like you want these monolithic groups. So basically, it's just groups of poor white people who live in these rural places, and they don't want anybody there. So now they have nobody to blame. Black people ain't there, and the Mexicans. It's only you. You're failing because of you. So they don't have anybody to blame. It's hilarious to me. At least let some niggas in have you have somebody to blame.
Well, I want to talk about your new Netflix special.
Sure.
But before I do, since it's so off the press right now, I want to talk about your comments about Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart was offered the Oscars, and he announced that it was one of his dreams to always host this and so forth. And then they unearthed some old tweets of his, which some people felt were homophobic.
Sure.
At first, he said that he wasn't going to apologize. And then he ended up basically stepping down and somewhat apologizing.
Well, I think, and Kevin's a talented cat, and I don't know what I talked to him on that. I guess the Friday after it happened, And I would have never apologized for telling the joke. And I defended him like I defended Don Imus's right to to say something dumb. I defended Bill Maher's right to say something dumb. John Rocker's right to say something dumb. Michael Richards' right to say something dumb. My defense of Kevin Hart is basically self-centered, because in order for people to be free to say what they want, I have to be. In order for me to be free to say what I want, they got to be free to say what they want. But I'm really to me the gay community has started to become bullies. Like, if you say anything about, listen, we live in America. Well, we're persecuted and people are dying. That same adage, black people have been dying in this country and persecuted in this country since we got here. But jokes are still made about us. People are dying, and that's very unfortunate. The Fifth Amendment allows Americans to have guns. 1 million Americans have died from the 60s till right now at the hands of other Americans. And every time there's a mass tragedy, what do they say? That's part of the business. That's part of what you get when you have this right. It is part of is freedom. It's the freedom, our freedom, because we have this freedom. It results in these kinds of things. And no one ever talks about taking the Fifth Amendment away from somebody. More people will die because of the Fifth Amendment than ever would die from the First.
Well, you had a response, and we'll go ahead and play that now.
So let me get this straight. A comedian tells a joke that offends people and refuses to apologize. And people want to know what I think of that. Fuck them if they can't take a joke. Well played, Kevin Hart. That is how it's done. People always go, why do comedians get away with it? Because we're not scared to get fired. You can say whatever you want to if you're not scared to lose your gig. Well done, Kevin Hart. Fuck them if they can't take a joke.
But I think that the most interesting thing about your response was that, you said, oh, well, people criticize comedians saying, they could say whatever they want and there's no repercussions. Well, no, you could say whatever you want too. You just might lose your job.
Yeah.
and comedians are okay with losing their job.
Listen, I could lose mine too. There might be something. But ultimately, the only thing I'm responsible for as an artist is my perspective. Comedy is a very solitary thing. It's a lone wolf kind of activity. It's not collaborative. I'm expanding on my viewpoint. But I resent the fact that you believe that you are immune to jokes. I don't think anybody's immune to jokes. My father just died of cancer. I told jokes about it. You heard it in my Contrarian special. My son has Asperger's syndrome. I didn't graduate from college. And you make high school. I talk about all these things, and you think you're exempt. You can love who you love, and I'll defend your right to love them. I will defend your right to be treated fairly and to not be discriminated against. And I will also tell jokes about it. I don't think
Right.
It makes you immune. I don't think you're any more special than anybody else. And don't tell me it's because people are committing suicide and dying. A girl today got teased for riding with a white girl, and she committed suicide. The very essence of humanity is humor. The LGBTQ community moved forward in such what feels like leaps, not because they were activists and ball busters. It's because of Ellen and Glee and Will and Grace. People laughed. They laughed with them and at them, and they moved forward. Shut up and sit down. If you don't like what I say, don't listen to me. But you're not gonna bully me into not saying what I believe, or nor should you have that right.
Well, you had a transgender on Twitter
Sure.
call you out for some homophobic, which she felt
Right.
were homophobic comments.
Right.
And the funny part about this is that, she said, this is why you're a failure at comedy.
Right.
Which made me take a step back and say, okay, come on. Cut it.
Now, here's the thing. You said something slick to me. We were having a discourse. First, I wasn't even talking to you. You said something slick to me, and I said something slick back to you. And then you hide under the fact that you're 23 and you're a transgender. If you big enough, when I was a kid, if you big enough to hit, you big enough to hit back. You cannot say to me, I pushed you and you slapped the shit out of me and that was too much. If you don't want to play rough, don't talk slick to me. I don't give a fuck who you are. Because you put on a dress, I'm supposed to be nice to you and you can say whatever you want to me? Fuck you. Literally. I'm the most compassionate human being I know, but I don't think you're special just because of you've gone through hardships. I don't. I think that what makes you special is the fact that you can look at those hardships. I remember growing up, my mother's adage is you got to laugh to keep from crying. And what I resent particularly is the only time you seem to be engaged is when something happens to you. We're all in this together. If something happens, when Chick-fil-A did something to gay people, I wrote a letter. It was satire, but I wrote a letter calling out what I thought was homophobia. I use humor to do it. When something happens to somebody, I speak out. But they seem to only be interested when something happens to them. I don't see anything. I don't see anybody marching when a black kid gets shot in the streets, or a woman's child is snatched from her brutally. If we're human beings and you want us all to fight for you, fight for somebody else too.
Yeah. Well, you called her a pussy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting response.
Because I never knew who I was talking to. I just saw the timeline, and that's a phrase I use all the time. But I'm not afraid to be disliked by people who don't feel like I'm not asking you what to say. I'm saying it, and you will either dig it or not. But I think it's silly. If I don't like something, I don't listen to it. I don't then get other groups of people to get together and we don't like it together. That's high school, and I don't ask you for permission. How come you get to say things and I don't get to? I'm a grown man. I don't have to ask my father for permission to have a point of view. I think it's just really silly, and I think one of the reasons we have that would be an okay vantage point if it were really having the effect that it espouses to have. Is the country getting more tolerant? It is not. It's more racial, more bigoted, more homophobic, that isn't because comedians tell jokes.
Well, yeah, I mean, because after the Kevin Hart thing, I think Nick Cannon actually dug up some old tweets from some white female comedians.
Sure.
Did you see those?
I did.
Amy Schumer, she had a tweet that said, "Enjoy Skyfall, fags." Sarah said, "The new Bachelorette's a faggot." Chelsea Handler, Sarah Silverman was the one who said the last one. And Chelsea Handler said, "This is what a fag bird looks like when he flexes," and had like some sort of meme or something like that. I don't see any sort of backlash against any of these three white women.
Well, for me, I don't think anybody. Obviously, you have the right to have an aversion to what people say, and you have the right to act on that aversion. What you don't have the right to do is to control thought. And listen, I don't have to like you. I don't have to like what you do. I gotta make sure that you're treated fairly, that you're not discriminated against, as a part of the human community. But you're not any more special than anybody else, or any more entitled to something anybody else didn't have. You're not. Everybody wants equality till it's time for the light bulbs to drop. Like, everybody want to be equal, but when the light bulbs drop, it's women and children first. No, fuck that. We equal. We equal. Yeah. And it's just it's silly and galling to me. It's just I don't. It's not even a part of my lexicon to let someone else tell me what to think or what to say.
You have a new Netflix special out called Contrarian.
Right.
Excellent special.
Thank you, man.
For whoever hasn't watched this, if you're a fan of D.L. Hughley on VladTV, you absolutely have to watch this. Number one, why the name Contrarian? Because I couldn't quite figure that part out.
I don't even know why that name came up so much, but we would be talking, or I would read an interview that I'd done, or even some of the comments, particularly after I talked to you. And there was always this sentiment that I was contrary. So it just seemed, I don't think anything I say is all that contrary.
Yeah, I don't think so either. That's why I asked.
I don't.
You see what I'm saying?
To me, it's just, it doesn't really resonate, or it's not even all that important to me. But the only import it has is that it's my opinion, and I'll fight vociferously to defend it. But it just seemed to be kind of a moniker that people seem to ascribe to me that I don't particularly understand. But it was kind of tongue in cheek.
Okay. Well, you talked about it in the special how we lost Prince, but Bobby Brown's still here.
Yeah, That's a shame. That's how you know God is. He works in mysterious ways.
Right, because I guess it was an intern working that day.
Yeah. It just seems a shame that one of the greatest performers and musicians that ever lived, and seemed to be healthy and vibrant, is gone, and Bobby Brown, who's been on the wild side for a long time, is here making barbecue sauce and living his best life. It's funny to me.
I mean, to be fair, I think Bobby Brown's a great musician.
He is. He's dope. He's dope.
You know, between New Edition and his solo career, he had some absolute hits.
But he definitely has pushed the envelope.
Compared to Prince, yeah.
Bobby Brown has done so much shit.
Right,
I'm sure he's shocked he's still here. I'm sure he's
right. Yeah, remember he had the jaw, like the kind of like the cracked jaw at one point.
I just was hanging out with Bobby Brown. We had a gig in Virginia. And I'm sitting in a bar with Bobby Brown in a hotel, and he starts smoking in the bar after the man, and he's like, and I'm like, Bobby, you saw all these people tell you can't do that. They just told you can't do it. He said, but I'm still Bobby, and he is. That's exactly who he is. That's exactly who he is. And I went, I'm not going to jail fucking with you, and I moved. I'm not going to do it. But that's exactly who he is. So my point was just the juxtaposition of Prince, who had, seemed to live a different life, and Bobby, who pushes the boundaries at every turn and still vibrant and kicking it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw Prince perform maybe like a year or so before he died, and he was thin. He looked healthy.
Right.
I mean, but I guess when you're popping pills, though, you can't tell. So.
Right, you can't. That is the point of popping
pills.
You can't tell. You can't tell.
Yeah, you can't tell. You can't tell. Well, you talked about the Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. And you talked about how Bill Cosby should start the Y'all Too movement.
Yeah, but even now, I think that if the predicate is that we're going to go back in time and to prosecute people for their past transgressions, okay. But I think Bill Cosby should have some company, and there should be a whole lot of Catholic priests next to him. There should be a whole lot of people next to him. I remember the dude from Penn State that, all that whole apparatus said he was molested for the time he's 13 to the time he's 28. If your coach is still coming after you, and you 28, you got a boyfriend. You just accept that it's couples that ain't been together that long. But the idea that you had all those almost 300 priests, I think in Pennsylvania, which is, I believe, where Bill Cosby is in prison now, and they're not doing time. And I'm not saying that...
Really?
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be because they aren't. I'm saying they should be because he is. If that's the predicate.
It's interesting, like with Bill Cosby, because I just interviewed Tamala Jones, the actress.
She played my wife in Brothers. Tamala Jones, yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And she had her own kind of interesting history with Bill Cosby. First of all, when she was like in high school, starting out, I guess Bill Cosby told her mother that Hollywood's a tough business and she doesn't have what it takes. So that kind of started things off. And then when she did Booty Call, Bill Cosby went out and said that, this movie is disgusting and, it's, there's more to black people than just body parts. And it's like basically, he just downed the whole movie after this was her first, movie, opportunity. So we talked about the whole Jeffrey Owens thing about how I felt that when you're approaching retirement age and you're working at Trader Joe's, to me, that looked like a failure as an adult when you're doing that at that age.
Right.
It's a very unpopular opinion. A lot of people bash me over that, but that's just how I feel. And she had an interesting perspective about it. She said, well, the way she looks at it,
I think it's because of him in their mind. He wanted them to all go back to school. You go back to school. You do this. He was really their father. So when they're listening to him and taking his advice because he is Bill Cosby, I feel like those people, except for Lisa Bonet, because she jumped up out of there and was like, I'm
she started doing
me.
naked photo shoots.
Yeah, because she
did
wasn't
like Angel
listening.
Heart. Remember she was naked in
I
that?
loved it. With Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
Loved that movie. But that was her choice as an artist. And she jumped off the ledge, free falling, and was like, fuck you. I'm going to do what I want to do. It's my life. I don't think anyone working under him had the courage to do that outside of her.
Well, I think two things. One, I think that anything you got to do to take care of your family and you ain't robbing somebody is, I think honorable. But I think one of the things that did happen with Bill Cosby was, whether for better or for worse, to the cast members, you are always going to, there's nothing you can ever do, or the chances of you ever doing anything that registers or imbues itself in the country's psyche that way are very minimal. I don't think you can always see Malcolm Jamal as Theo, and you can always see Rudy is, you're going to always see them the same way. But I think the thing that was, first, that show used to play all over the country, so there had to be some residuals that you were making. You were making residual payment. When they took that show off, people had to get jobs. Because if they're taking the show off and it's not being showed in as many syndicated markets, you're not getting the residuals you used to get. So now you got to work.
Right.
So I think
Right.
as far as Bill Cosby, I don't think Bill Cosby's in jail for what he did as much as for who he pretended he was. Bill Cosby lived his life seeming to be very judgmental, telling people how to live. I remember that famous pound cake story. He pretended to be something.
Wait, hold on. Which pound cake story?
He told the story about a little boy and how, what if this boy steals a pound cake and the police beat him up? And you cry, the police beat my baby. And he's like, why'd you steal the pound cake? It's interesting that Bill Cosby's in jail with the very dudes he was telling to pull their pants up. But I think, and again, I think that there is something to be said for the fact that justice seems to be blind, but when it comes to black or brown people, that bitch takes a peek. But I still think that he was very hypocritical in his, like, you telling black comedians how to tell jokes and you drugging broads. You know what I mean? Don't say nigga. Well, rape is a lot worse than nigga. So I think he lived a life that was certainly not what he pretended it to be. And I think at a certain point, very few of us can survive Google. I think America's having that problem. I think the idea of America is at odds with the reality of America because people got Google.
Yeah, you can look up anything.
Yeah. Is that true? Let's see.
Nothing ever dies or can get buried anymore.
Nope.
In your comedy special, you talked about how black people will forgive any musical artist if they drop a hot enough album.
Black people will forgive. Look at Bill Cosby. Look at the affinity that people have. First off, Cliff Huxtable is not in trouble. Bill Cosby is. But he made us laugh, or Fat Albert, or whatever incarnation of Cosby you happen to have an affinity for. He indelibly imprinted himself in our psyche. O.J. Simpson, when he's running through the airport, it's the first time we'd ever seen a black man who was, sponsored by a major advertiser. He was, running through here go the juice. Because, or Kanye with his first couple of albums, or R. Kelly. That's how bad black people need to feel good. That's how bad we need to feel good.
Well, because what was interesting was I just interviewed Bill Duke recently. And I asked him what he thought about Kanye's slavery comments.
Because it wasn't just about beats and sex. It was about content, about social content, etc. But I think after his mother's death, something happened. I'm not sure what it was. I can't speak for him, but he went on a different path. And so,
Well, I can attest to the fact that I just lost my old man. And I am 54 years old and I feel like an orphan. And I know, and there are any number of studies that tell you that psychologically it can change you forever. I understand that. But to take the stances he takes, as bright as he is and as ill-informed as he is, my problem with Kanye stems from a couple of things. That he gives white supremacists comfort. He says the only person that would say the things that Kanye West has said would be a white supremacist, and he'd get in trouble for it. This man put an asterisk by slavery. Slavery was bad, but, an asterisk means, oh yeah, but, Barry Bond hit all those home runs, but yeah, but. So it was, and then you're talking about how you're a free thinker. Well, free thinkers don't have liposuction because people think they're overweight. Free thinkers wear a black T-shirt and to think they sexy any goddamn way. The new slave is drug addicts. So you're calling people fucking slaves, and you're a slave to people's idea of you, and you're a slave to substances. Now, you can be a bright man, but that doesn't entitle you to an intellectual perspective that you don't have the merit for. You say I'm bipolar and I'm a superhero. What the fuck you gonna see a bipolar? How you gonna see a bipolar up in the sky, down on the ground? How the fuck you gonna be a bipolar superhero?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just interviewed Jamel Hill, and we were talking about Kanye, and she's like, well, Kanye admits publicly that he doesn't read. You talked about Kanye West in the comments he made. About slavery being a choice. How do you feel about it now?
I still feel the same as I did then. People like Kanye worry me because they're loud and wrong and they got a big platform.
Loud and wrong.
And
great way to describe it.
Yeah, with Kanye in particular, he is trying to get on this bandwagon of, black people need to leave the Democratic Party and stop being taken advantage of. I understand that in and of itself. That in itself is an idea to consider. But because he lacks the scope and the breadth, and he himself admits he doesn't read, then it's sort of like you're not even contributing something constructive to the conversation.
Then how are you a free thinker?
That's what I'm saying. You're tackling political issues when you don't actually read about them at all. So
you like to sound smart to dumb people. Now, let me tell you something. He has the capacity for learning. If you don't read, you are lazy. You're intellectually lazy and you're not curious. Why the fuck would I listen to somebody who's too lazy to learn and is not curious about the world that goes around? What artist doesn't want to know about the world that he's going to see? I mean, how interested in you, in things that have nothing to do with what you do? Just because you're interested as a human being, just to be part of the human experience, you want to know things. And if you don't want to know them, you're either ignorant or think you have all the answers anyway, which is narcissistic. You're a fucking sociopath, which is why I can see how he likes Donald Trump.
Right. And, Mark Twain had a very interesting quote. He said, the man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read.
Right. It's discernible. There's no discern. Listen, I don't know. They attribute this to Mark Twain. And there's some data about it. He said it's easier to fool people than to convince people that they were fooled. And there's a lot of that in somebody that makes us feel good about ourselves, like a Kanye, like a Bill Cosby, like a, and I'm not equating their actions the same, but I'm talking about there is a feeling that we have of people. They are in the soundtracks of our lives, of our everybody. Bill Cosby is responsible for Barack Obama. I firmly believe it. They saw black people in a certain way. Black people saw themselves in a certain way and started going to college and responding. So that, of course, you're going to have a fond memory of that. Kanye, with his first couple of albums, talked to a group of people that no one had ever touched before. R. Kelly did things, so you can understand it. Michael Jackson, let me tell you something. He did things that you just defy description. That doesn't mean they weren't flawed, but because of your connection to them and your memory, then they can't. Then to you ascribe some level of deity that I don't think that's healthy or particularly smart.
Well, in contrarian, you had a kind of an interesting point. And this is something we've covered on VladTV as well. About ethnic names.
Sure.
And how people get hired less when they have quote unquote ethnic names.
Absolutely.
And you brought up the example of Barack Obama.
Right.
And people say, well, Barack Obama has a ethnic name, and look, he became president. But there's a very interesting distinction with Barack Obama.
He
want to talk about that?
Went to Harvard and Yale.
Right.
He was formally educated at some of the finest schools in the land. So you can do that. If you go to Harvard or Yale, Columbia, you can be named Barack Obama. If your name is DeAndre, you better not show up at DeVry.
Right.
And it's really just they did this study, and it talked about how teachers, when you're very young, teachers, your first contact with generally with people in the outside, your outside experience, people outside of your family, to a great degree, as an individual. In other words, where you're not being shepherded by your mother because you're at church or you're at a family function. But generally, you go to meet this lady you've never seen before. You sit in a classroom with people you've never known before. They form an opinion of you based on your name, where you live, and they treat you that way. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So people who name their children in a way that's going to lead people to a certain mindset have to understand that invariably there is a level of risk associated with that. Now, if you think your risk is worth it, and you think that there's not going to be a price to pay for it, that's fine. You can do what you want. But statistically, backwards and frontwards, people make these judgments based on what your name is, where you live. And it's not just white teachers, it's black teachers too. The Washington Post printed that article, and it was interesting. Right now, if you fill out an application, people will tell you, people that work in human resources, the more ethnic they sound, the less likely they'll be called.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed Warren Sapp, and he has, I think, 5 kids. And he specifically named each of his kids, non-ethnic names.
This child is going to be 21, 23 years old, in college, leaving college, applying to grad school and a different thing. And Shaniqua, Bongwequa, Bolden don't look that real, don't good. When you got an old white guy that's 50, 60 years old that goes and eats over here with number 50, 60-year-old white guys, and he don't know no Bonquisha and Shaniqua and Aisha and the different kids' names like this. And he can't even pronounce it. So what does he do? Put that one over there.
So you kept that in mind when you named your kids?
Carter, Autumn, Mercedes, Madison, Jalen, Warren II.
He freely admitted it. Like, all his kids have, just basic American sounding names.
Right. My wife named all of my children, to which I was very resentful about it. She named them, you can tell whether they were black or white, whether they were a boy or a girl. And I was irritated by that for many years. And
what are your kids' names?
Tyler, Kyle, and Ryan. And you can't tell what they are. But it angered me at first because I felt like I was capitulating. I felt like we were trying to. But years later, I came to understand that was the wisest course of action. People are gonna judge you when they see you. Why would they want to judge you before they even the thing that's so funny to me is they made up a nigga to describe people they had never even met. They made up a word that described us before they knew who we were. They already made their minds up. And I said this before, the most dangerous place for black people to live is in white people's imagination. Their imagination. Like, if you talk about black on black crime, black people don't live where they live for the most part because they want to. Oftentimes, it was systematically designed. They couldn't get loans in places that weren't those places. The resources are gone. There's no such thing as black on black crime, but it's an idea that white people have you ever noticed how Chicago is synonymous with black people, but Maine isn't synonymous with white people? You instantly know, even though most of the people live there. Like Chicago means violence to them. West Virginia doesn't mean drug addict. But the way that they can describe it, like, I hope I never meet the nigga that they have in their imagination. I hope I never meet him. He's big, he's black, he's fast, he's strong, he's everywhere.
Well, you talked about when you were trying to sell one of your homes. I guess the real estate agent told you not to have pictures of your family.
Well, I lived in West Hills, and I sold that house. So I lived in a place called the Monte Vista Estates. I lived in one of the very first phases of that development, and so on the street I picked the lot, the biggest lot I had, and we had it. additions to it, and we built a pool, and we invested in this home because that's what you're supposed to do, and this was our chip in the game, and so we were ready to sell it because my wife wanted to move to Calabasas, so we were ready to sell it, and the housing market at that time was pretty solid. My real estate agent said, well, take your pictures down because they're going to appraise your home. And I'm like, I'm not getting ready to take my pictures down. The real estate appraiser comes and appraises my home. This home was 3 years old, 2.5, 3 years old. Appraised it at so low that the bank wondered, was this it had to be damaged or repossession or destroyed or whatever. And they asked him why he did it, and basically it was because I was black. No other reason than the fact that I lived there, they gave me the fair market value for my home, and it was $150,000 or $125,000 more than he was going to give me. So he took real wealth from me just because he could, and I was black, and it perpetuates itself. And that situation, like if you look at gentrification is black people getting enough to move out and white people moving in. Mm-hmm. But they bring Whole Foods and parks and grocery stores and Starbucks. They bring that with them. Now, the geographic area didn't change.
Yeah.
Like Linwood, let me tell you something. Linwood and Compton isn't Linwood. Kevin Costner lived in Linwood. There's never been a place designed for black people to live in large numbers, not even the projects. The only place they ever built for niggas to live was prison. Compton is a black city. You know how Compton wasn't built for black people? It got an airport. So Compton was built for white people. What happened was they left, took their resources, and it became where black people with money started to live.
I think George Bush lived in Compton at one point.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think George Bush lived in Compton. Well, you had an interesting quote around this topic. You said, their perception of you is costing you and your family wealth and livelihood.
Actually.
It's not somebody calling you the N-word or refusing you at a store. They're taking a piece of the American dream away from you just because.
Well, the Brookings Institute did an exhaustive study, and it talked about how our houses are devalued to almost $6 billion because black people live there. If you go to Harlem right now, same buildings, right? Remember 20 years ago, they were selling brownstones in Harlem for $1?
For $1.
But when white people moved in, it's psychological. Black people move in, there goes the neighborhood. White people move in, here it comes. They have convinced us and banks and lending institutions and other businesses that these people are dangerous and we are your salvation.
Yeah.
But if you took the resources out of anything, there would be, you can't take the resources away and then expect that neighborhood to be viable. Why is it viable when you go? Oakland is used to be one of the blackest cities I've ever been to. Go there now.
Yeah, I used to live in Oakland.
So but it's this, if in other words, the only difference is black people moved out and white people moved in, then it's the same structure, same size house, same geographical area. So when I say the most dangerous place for us to live is in white people's imagination, it's because it sets the argument. It's the narrative. We know that black, you would almost believe that white people don't commit crime when they do 2-to-1, virtually every crime black to white. They do. They always talk about black people kill black people. Most white people are killed by white people, but no one talks about. When that dude shot up Nevada, shot up Las Vegas, 200 some people got shot, 60 people got killed. They call that white on white crime?
Yeah, no, I feel you. No, I mean, you basically said in your comedy special, you said that. You talked about how people kill people in their vicinity.
Proximity.
You said that black people don't kill more; they just have less gas money.
If something happened to you, unfortunately happened to you, who would be the first people they talk to and held under suspicion? The people
around you
who are you are intimate, you live with. They look at your wife, They look at your kids. They look at your neighbors. So stop acting like the phenomenon where people who have nothing, neighborhoods aren't more violent because they're black or they're brown. Neighborhoods are more violent because they're poor. Show me a poor, safe neighborhood anywhere. I don't care if you go to South Boston. A lot of broke white people. It ain't safe.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I feel you. It's really too bad that coming into 2019 is still that same fuck shit.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's they set the narrative. Like I remember when Luke Cage was on TV and he was a bulletproof black man. I'm like, we don't need a fucking bulletproof black superhero. That's all I need is a bulletproof nigga. I don't ever want to see that. Well, if black people had any super power, it'd be the ability to make white people believe them. Look at what America will accept. America accepts, as a matter of principle, the idea that you can be a woman trapped in a man's body. That's accepted. But it still believes, at the same time, that black people are inherently criminal.
Since last time we talked, Halloween came and went. There was a rash of blackface,
Right,
from all over the country.
Right. Yeah, Megyn Kelly. She said she didn't see, and she lost her job. So that bitch ain't been a nigga a week, and she's already unemployed, which is hilarious to me. I think that white people should be able to wear blackface, and the minute they do, their credit score should go down and their blood pressure should go up. Matter of fact, we should have Halloween on election day, and that way, when white people dress in blackface, somebody suppresses their vote.
Okay. Well, recently we had one of our regular guests on VladTV, a guy named Daylight. Mm-hmm. You ever seen any of his interviews?
I seen a couple.
Well, with Daylight, you don't quite know what he's going to look like when he walks in because he is always in character. So he showed up like this. She recently announced that she's out of a record deal.
She had a deal?
She had a deal. I think at Def Jam.
Who signed her?
Well, T.I. originally signed her, I think.
Fucked.
I think he was...
Had to. She has no talent whatsoever.
Okay. So we had Daylight on Vlad TV, and he showed up as his fictional half-brother Bradley.
Right.
In full white face and a blonde wig. And I've known Daylight for years, so it didn't really faze me, but surprisingly what I saw happening in the comments was there was all these white people so upset saying, look, this guy's allowed to wear whiteface, but if I did it, then I would be racist.
Listen. Let's dispense, Vlad, for the purposes of this argument. Let's give people permission to act any way they want. You can wear whiteface, you can say nigga, you can use homophobic slurs. Just don't expect to keep your idea of yourself. People are going to have an opinion about it. You get to do all that. And you're protected from the government, but you're not protected from private industry or people's perspective. I don't think it's wrong for people. Like my sister told me a long time ago. It was really one of the most liberating things that I ever said. I used to go, how come I can't go to this party? Mama said I can't go. She said, you can go anywhere you want to if you're willing to take the ass whooping to come along with it. You can go anywhere you want to. It was the most. Yeah. I went to a lot of parties and took a lot of ass whooping, but I got it. I think that we want to pretend like what inhibits you from saying what you want to say? The fear of consequence.
Right.
You want to be what you want and do what you want with no consequence. No one has that. Everything you do in your life, you work or you get fired. You love me or you treat me right or I leave you. You praise me or you go to hell. Everything you do is more fear of consequence than love. Mm. You ain't not drinking and driving because you don't want to go to jail.
Right.
It's fear of consequence. Yeah. But in this aspect, you don't want that.
Right. And the internet's sort of a very interesting place because it sets off, there's an air of anonymity where you could say the most vile shit to anybody. and you're hiding behind a fake screen name and so forth. Like, I've always wondered, what if they suddenly passed a law where you could actually look up the home address and real identity of anybody who ever comments?
I think that people would be, listen, we pretend to be farther along as a society than we are. We pretend to be, and we're always like, that has no place in America. It does. Racism has no place in racism has a condo here, timeshare. Stop with this. Stop this idea of us we can only get better if the idea of us is challenged to the extent that we become who we really want to be. Trump is more like America than America cares to admit. Trump is America. Obama was who we wanted to be. Trump is who we are.
Yeah, I feel you.
If you look at the popular notion of Americans around the world, he fucking fits every one of the narratives. Ignorant and fat, lazy, intellectual, like stupid, bully. He's everything they think of us.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I'm embarrassed by Donald Trump being our president.
Not me.
No,
I'm so
not
happy.
A little bit.
It makes me happy because this is white people. Is this the best you could do? This dude is the best you could do? That's hilarious to me. That's when
Isn't it interesting how people considered, George W. Bush like the Antichrist until Trump came along, and now he's like almost like a darling to the black community.
Well, now he's not the darling.
Michelle Obama.
George Bush
Kinda.
is tight shoes, so you feel good when you take them off. Like that's what I never was. Like, it was funny to watch. That's cute that he gave a cough drop to Michelle Obama. I dug it. That's whimsical. But millions of people died in a war they didn't have to. And I'm not talking about a few. I'm talking about, we ain't just talking about us, because, Americans, the thing about America, we'll have a World Series with just us in it. Like, it'll be Detroit versus New York, but it's the World Championship. Like, what about Uruguay? Fuck Uruguay. This is about us. We tend to only count our losses. Millions of people died in bombings, and subsequently after that, and all the things that all the chemicals and stuff. So people died and he made a mistake, and we get to be you couldn't give nobody enough cough drops to make that shit go away.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's cute. I'm glad it's nice. But it's a whole lot of motherfuckers that'll never get a cough drop again because of your mentality.
Right. Yeah, with no repercussions.
Nope.
Like my bad.
Nope.
Yeah,
Oops.
sorry. Oh, no weapons of mass destruction.
Oops.
Oh, my bad.
And I swear
we got this oil under control back though. You know what I mean?
And now I paint
hey.
and say cute shit and give a beautiful black woman a Ricola, and we're even. Nah.
Since last time that we talked, Tekashi 6ix9ine has gotten arrested on RICO charges.
Right.
And is, facing a whole bunch of really serious charges.
Yeah.
I mean, facing like up to life in prison in the worst case.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is the poster child for the new generation of trolling rapper? Like this is
well, I think
he got to the highest level essentially and dropped to the absolute lowest place you could drop. Aside from getting killed.
There is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. So whatever incarnation this takes, it is unfortunate. Be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. Everybody wants to be a nigga till the police show up. Everybody does. That's great and fun. And now you'll see. I think that is an age old, like it's been around since time infinitum, where people, when Biggie said, "I'm ready to die," guess what? The face give you what you asked for now.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King said, "I may not get there with you." Okay, now okay.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with Tupac. I interviewed, his brother, Mo Preem. We talked about, whether Tupac's death, could have essentially been a side effect with how much he talked about death through his music, and he agreed.
If you listen through his music, you'll see, through his albums, you'll see there's a constant death chant. It's always talking about death. Don't forget you could die, nigga. You die, I could die, we could die, I'ma die. Nigga die, nigga, you wanna die? Die. Nigga die, death, nigga die. You know what I mean? And I think that's because Pac would have dreams too. He would, he would wake up screaming and shit. And
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So he felt he was going to die soon.
Yeah.
What is it in the Bible? There's life and death. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. Life and death. Like, it's always funny to me because, like, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I'm a very I believe I'm a spiritual cat. I believe that there's something past me. But oftentimes, the most humane people I know are atheists because they don't base it on some kind of heaven or hell scenario. It's just I'm gonna be a good person and I'm gonna try. So but I ascribe to a higher power. But everybody always go, well, the wages of sin is death. Motherfucker, the wages of life is death. Well, you a good person or a bad person, one day you're gonna die, whether you sinned or not.
I mean, do you believe in God?
Of course.
You do.
I don't believe
But
he's.
You don't.
I don't believe he's the God that would allow people to be enslaved. And the thing for me is, and I said this in my special, it's really at least dubious to me because to be a black person in America is the same person people that gave you Jesus gave you nigga.
Right. You talked about that in your special.
Yeah, the same people that gave you Jesus gave you nigga. And that you were taught about this Bible that you couldn't read. Now, if your ass was a slave and you could quote a scripture from the Bible and it looked like you read it, you'd get killed for that. I mean, I just did even when I was young, it didn't make sense to me. Like, I stopped believing in Santa because, like, if Santa's been around, what would a little slave kid don't want a fucking bike? He want his father and he want his daddy to have his foot back. That's what the fuck he wants. It just, the idea, this notion, American Christians are the most violent, judgmental, least forgiving. Like, there was that guy that left America. Remember the evangelist that left America and went to the most remote island in the world. This island was 50 to 60,000 years old. And he was going to teach about Jesus. And then they shot arrows at him and it landed in the Bible. One of the arrows, motherfucker, if you get shot in the Bible with an arrow, if a motherfucker shoots you in Ecclesiastes, it's time for you to turn around. Maybe that's Jesus telling you that they ain't ready to hear about you. But the idea of these people believing, if you've been around that long, maybe you know Jesus. Maybe it just ain't the one. What do we love more? We love God so much, we put God on our money. We say dumb shit like, it happened because we took prayer out of school. You can't take prayer out of school. How the fuck you gonna stop God from going to school?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that whole situation, we talked about that. I mean, the fact that someone is so arrogant that they were going to go and enter an island that was completely prohibited from anyone entering, mostly because of disease.
Right.
Because these people have been isolated for so long that, a cold will wipe out that whole colony, essentially. The fact that you feel that Jesus is guiding you and knows better than these people to the point where you illegally enter this place and then get killed in the process.
And let me tell you something. Jesus never works out for the people who are receiving it. Like, when they land on the island, it ain't good for them. It's good for the people bringing them. Maybe those natives over there heard about our natives and they wasn't ready for casinos.
Right.
And they didn't want Thanksgiving. When something like that happens, it thrills me that it happened. That's what you fucking deserve. You fucking deserve it.
I agree. And his own family actually spoke out and said that, we forgive the people that killed our son. Nobody forced him to go over there. He did it. We understand why it happened. They even asked the authorities to stop to let the people who helped him get over there. Because they were all in jail.
Right.
The people that helped him, they said that nobody forced him or convinced him to go. He did it on his own free will. So please, let those people go. And they knew their son fucked up. It is what it is.
It is
what it is.
The American Christians, we're like every year, somebody will get mad and say that somebody on the right will get mad and say there's a war on Christmas or some shit like that. Like there's a depiction of Jesus in a manger, but he has bars around him like he's in a cage. And they're like, and Sean Hannity with his shoe booty ass is saying stuff like, oh, it's a war on Christmas. Motherfucker, Jesus was a refugee, right? Jesus told us he resided in a strange land and he told us how to treat people. Let me tell you something. The manger was pretty much the cages of our time. It's not a war on Christmas in America. It's a war on Christ. It's a war on Jesus. We're nothing like him. Nobody could love we spend more on being able to kill people than we do on trying to keep them alive. We spend more on keeping them afraid than we do keeping them educated. How the fuck if Jesus came back, he would probably get jammed up by TSA so long he'd never leave the airport. You with the sandals, come here.
You with the beard.
And them 12 niggas come with y'all, come with me too.
Yeah, the one with the hair like wool.
Right, come here.
So you were part of the Kings of Comedy tour.
Uh-huh.
Was that the most successful comedy tour ever at that point?
Yes, it was at that point.
Okay. Now, you talked about how there was almost another tour.
Right.
But there was essentially a beef between Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey?
Yes.
You talk about that?
Well, I think we were, I remember I was at the golf course and we were getting ready to put it together and everybody was all excited. And so it was, you remember how the Lakers had Chris Paul for a second and then the next day they did? That's how it was. Like we was together, we were all excited and the next day it didn't happen. And essentially, Bernie, felt like he didn't want to do it anymore. He was on his own path and Steve. So, nothing like that ever happens or doesn't happen for a reason. So I was disappointed, but I understood that, those kind of things happen. And I just, got the memory of being with cats that I loved and making history and putting our mark, making our mark in the world. And I love doing it with the comedy Get Down with me and George and Sid and Eddie Griffin. So and Charlie Murphy before he passed. So to me it was just it was something nobody could ever take away from you, and regardless of what people think about it, it was magical. And I've had a few of those kind of experiences that you just kind of transcend the moment, and it's just kind of dope.
Well, I mean, I'm actually thinking I went to the Kings of Comedy show in Oakland.
Oh, yeah.
In was it 99 maybe? Something like that?
Yeah, it had to be 99.
Yeah, 1999 at the Oakland Coliseum, I think. Yeah, that was a hell of a show.
It was the most fun. I'm telling you. And it wasn't, nobody ever tried to blow out somebody else's candle to make theirs burn bright. It was just cats that had natural affinity for each other and wanted everything to go well, and it was about the tour.
Well, I guess you talked about how you feel that the beef between Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey was because Steve Harvey was getting a lot of network love during the time, and Bernie Mac not so much.
Yeah, and then Bernie started to get it, and and then he could make his own decision. He could decide that this is what he wanted to do, and he made a different decision. So yeah, I think that Steve at one point was, uber successful, and then Bernie started to, because he didn't ever think he would get the opportunity he got, but once he did, America loved him, like we all kind of knew they would, and he decided to go a different way, and no one resented it. Like we were just like, that's dope for you, man. You go and do your thing.
How did you feel when you got that phone call about Bernie? Because I don't think anyone saw it coming. Did you see
Well,
it coming at all?
well, here's the thing, and I talk about this all the time. It had been a couple of weeks earlier, we gotten a similar call where they talked about how Bernie was gone. We called, and of course it wasn't true. So I was on this really tough run. Had all these dates, and I said, what I'll do is, I know he's sick, so I'll play this run, and then I'll go see my friend. Like, he'll be all right. I'll play this run, and then of course, I was on the run, and then I got the call while I was in Vegas, and he was in fact dead. And one of the first things people say is, he knew you loved him, and I'm like, that's not really. How do you know that that's true if I didn't tell him? So I think that things like that. Like, I remember when my old man was dying, and he had lung cancer and he couldn't hear, and women are always like, he can hear you. He knows you're there. No, he doesn't. That's something we say to each other. But the only time that people actually know how you feel is if you tell them or show them when they're cognizant enough to know it.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think we say a lot of things, particularly around death, that make us feel more comfortable than the people we're supposed to be comforting.
No, I feel you. Now, one of the things, as I was going through, our research for this interview, I didn't realize that you and T.K. Kirkland actually have a history.
T.K. Kirkland was my mentor. He was my mentor for a very long time. Matter of fact, the places I used to play, whether it was Birdland West or Miss Wiz or Comedy Act Theater, were all Zenos. So these were all, I came up under him and put me on stage and give me tips and come over to my house for dinner. And matter of fact, he got his teeth fixed on my dental plan because I worked at the LA Times. My wife's still mad at me about that now. My son, Kyle Aris Hughley, is named after his son. We were very, he was very, I just thought he was dope and giving and talented. And so he went on tour with NWA, and when he came back, I took over at the Birdland West, and I took over at Zeno's, and all the clubs, because he had all the clubs in LA he was hosting. And when he came back, they're like, we're going to stay with you. And that caused a little bit of attention, friction, and it was weird for a little while, but I still have nothing but respect and gratefulness for the position he put me in.
Yeah, I mean, he's a regular.
Yeah, I see him.
VladTV.
I see him all the time.
Yeah, he's been there a bunch of times, man. One of the funniest guests, man.
Always. He's dope. He's very dope.
And completely unapologetic. Says he's never gonna get married.
Yeah.
Says he's gonna maintain multiple girlfriends.
Well, it's kind of late now. It's kind of late now. Might as well finish this whole thing. Go for the ride. Yeah, I don't blame him.
Well, I mean, speaking of women in your life, in your comedy special, you talked about how you don't have life insurance.
No. Well, I do. I do have life insurance, but because life insurance is so weird, because not only do I have to take care of you while I'm here, I got to take care of you after I'm gone too. And all you're gonna do is marry another motherfucker. Then y'all spend my money together, which seems weird, but I think it's you try to prepare for people, or people for them to be prepared for a life where potentially something could happen. But my wife got mad because I didn't get life insurance on her. She said, "You're not gonna. What about me?" I'm like, "What happened if I go early? What's gonna happen to you guys?" I'm like, "We'll be sad, and basically sadness and more closet space. It will be very sad, but I will have a lot of room to put a lot of shit. I'll be like, but sad." But closet space.
Right, because I guess you said someone asked you, would you get remarried? And you said, well, not at the funeral.
You wouldn't do that. That would draw suspicion. Hey, you guys.
You said that.
Hey, fellas, hey, kids, meet your new mama now. Let's not tell the police that we. So yeah.
Right, because you said that if your wife passes, you'd have to tell the kids they're getting a 33-year-old Puerto Rican stepmom.
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna give it. Like, if something happened to her, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, I'm definitely giving me a Puerto Rican. Oh yes, I promise.
Yeah, the Puerto Rican is next on the
Oh,
menu.
absolutely. Or somebody that don't speak English well. Or somebody. Oh, sure. Absolutely. I sure will. Have you ever noticed, like, when a black woman dates outside her race, or particularly like a famous black woman, they go, well, she did the best she could. She took that shit for as long as she could. Well, you know, we can feel that way too, goddammit. We can feel that way too. Yes, I'm giving
Yep.
me a Puerto Rican or something with a can on the end of it. Puerto Rican, Dominican, something.
Well, you said that in your comedy in Contrary, you said that your son has a white
He
girlfriend,
does.
but your daughter has black boyfriends,
Yes.
and that you gonna treat the grandkids differently.
I would. I am gonna treat my grandkids differently.
Okay, explain.
I'm gonna treat my white kids. Come, pop out, taking y'all to get ice cream. Now you niggas clean this house. Like I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna treat them like the rest of the world do. I'm trying to get y'all ready. And you know what else, Vlad? Now, when I have grandkids, my name ain't gonna be granddad or pawpaw. My name is gonna be him. Cause I want them to be very educated, but sound like niggas when they talk about me. Is him home? Where's him at? Him said I could have some money. If they don't call me him, I won't answer to them.
Okay, and we were talking about comedians apologizing. And I remember Gary Owen, who's been on
Right.
on VladTV a few times. I forgot whether he did this in my interview or whether he did it on his Instagram. I think it was on Instagram, where he said that whenever people perceive a comedian going over the line, the comedian will apologize, but they never really mean it.
Well, I don't think. I think that if I think reverse of it. I think why apologize? Giving an apology means you feel like you did something wrong, or somebody has convinced you that you did something wrong that's worth apologizing for. I just don't think that. And obviously, there are people. Many a truth is spoken in jest, and but comedy is elementally different things. It's irony, it's satire, it's all these things. And the point of what I say, at least in my estimation, is that I don't want people to know whether I'm serious or not. But people are trained now to let people off the hook. Now, if you're on social media, they'll put just kidding or LOL because they want. But I think that defeats the purpose of humor. I think they should know whether you're serious or not.
Like, out of all the comedians you've ever been around, you've been around all the greats.
Sure.
And it's interesting to me also when I interview comedians and sometimes we hang out beforehand and afterwards. It's interesting to me to see who's really funny when you turn on the camera and who's not really that funny with the cameras off, whereas who's just 24/7. Like, for example, Mike Epps is just funny, period.
Yeah.
All around. He doesn't stop. Out of all the comedians you've ever been around, who is just the absolute funniest human being you've ever encountered?
Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy, really?
Charlie Murphy.
Okay.
He's
I was not ready. I've interviewed Charlie before.
Funniest
Okay.
human being in conversation I've ever heard. Him and George Lopez are the funniest. Charlie, then George are the funniest. Like, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, they're the way that they. I would say if I were saying the funniest people, just listening to them, or just in life where I just listen to them, having conversation with them, is Charlie, George, and Eddie Griffin. Because Eddie, you'll be talking to him, and I'm like, you can't fucking believe that you. And he's serious as a fucking heart attack, and it's the funniest shit ever. Charlie might have been one of the meanest, nicest people I've ever met. Like, and George says some of the most searing, it's so searing and hurtful and true that it's hilarious. And he says it on, like, I'm talking about just in conversation. They're not, so you can always tell if somebody's working you for a bit or if somebody's, but just talking to them motherfuckers, I can't wait to hear what they have to say. And it's about anything too. Relationships, a menu, food, a pair of shoes. Fucking, I remember we had a gig and we left Buffalo and drove all the way, I forgot what city, we were all on the bus, but whatever, Atlanta. It's a 12, 14-hour bus ride. I was so tired, I fell asleep, and I always sleep with my clothes on when I'm that tired. Them motherfuckers talked about me literally from Buffalo to Atlanta. From Buffalo to Atlanta. And I woke up and everybody fell out because they said, like, nobody couldn't, they talked the whole time. And I had no idea what was going on. But those cats are, you could just tell that they come by it. They tapped into some other shit that they don't have to prep for it. They're just fucking weird and hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, Tracy Morgan, I think, was the other one.
Yeah, Tracy Morgan's like that too.
Yeah.
Tracy Morgan,
where it's just like he does not turn off. It does not matter if there's a camera or not. He is always funny.
And he's insane. Tracy Morgan one time, after he got hurt, I'm like, man, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. It was a tragedy. I'm so sorry, man. He said, hey, DL, I could have got hit by a Snapple truck. I was like, this motherfucker. This motherfucker. They don't even make that no more. I could get hit by a Snapple truck. I'm like, wow, that's true. He got hit by the right thing. What if you got hit by a Yoo-hoo truck? Come on, this shit ain't happening.
Yeah, you're not catching out with them.
You remember? Okay, this is very sad, but you know those duck boats that people are on, and that that all those people, they had $20 million worth of insurance. That's it for all those people. That's what they got. We got $20 million, and it's all these people that died, and all these lawyer fees, so nobody's getting. That's bad. That's horrible. That's a tragedy upon a tragedy. He got hit by the right corporation.
I just interviewed Jemele Hill, and we talked about, because she made the comments about Trump being a white supremacist.
Yes.
And Kurt Schilling, who also had a show at ESPN at the time, called her a racist.
So my issue is that Kurt Schilling and his supporters, if you will, are trying to play the game of false equivalency. I don't know the reasons why Kurt Schilling was let go from ESPN. That's above my pay grade. I'm not his boss. But I do know that Kurt Schilling posted some memes that were anti-Muslim, anti-transgender, which is not the same as what I did. And if people can't see why, then I don't know what to tell you. Read a book. And people have to keep in mind that in terms of the workplace, his host on Baseball Tonight is a Muslim, Adnan Virk. There are transgender people that work at ESPN. So how do you think they feel coming into work knowing that one of their biggest baseball personalities has made it known how he feels about these two groups of people in particular? He called Muslims Nazis. Oh, I'm sorry. Posted a meme in which it said that Muslims were basically the new Nazis. But people want to put our situation on the same level. And he, of all people, wants to call me a racist? Okay.
I hate when white people say, how come racism mean that I have to have an apparatus to support? If it can't be reverse racism, I never owned you. I don't have a system in place that subjugates you. I can be a bigot. I can be prejudiced. But I can't be a racist. It requires the power, a system that I don't have. I'd have to have banks, and I'd have to have police departments and educations and businesses that all conspire to make me. I make you uncomfortable. Kurt Schilling, white people do not like to admit the advantages that they have had, whether they have willfully acted on them or not, just being white. The ultimate superpower is whiteness. That's the ultimate superpower. Fuck being bulletproof. The ultimate superpower is white. Because you never get shot and you never get blamed for nothing. You never get blamed for nothing. Everything.
So white man is the equivalent of Superman.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something. We caught the president talking about sexually assaulting people. Nothing. Talk about the motherfucker on tape with an informant telling he broke all kind of Well, that shouldn't be a. Oren had said that. Well, anything can be under the law. You can make anything illegal. Motherfucker, that's the purpose of laws. If you don't like a law, slavery was illegal after a while, but first it wasn't. And they only do that for certain people. So I think they would never. I can't be a racist until all those things, or she can't be a racist. Racists don't fire themselves from their companies.
Yeah.
They don't fire
What was
themselves.
Remember Chris Rock in his special?
Yeah.
He said,
It ain't a.
how about this? I'll let white people can say the N-word, and I could raise interest rates.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's fucking spectacular. I think it's more like I thought Donald Sterling shouldn't have lost his team for saying what he said. I think that there are places you should be able to be hateful. Like you should be able to be bigoted in your own house and hateful in your own house. But the problem is we pretend like we all, at work we get along. I love the blacks and the gays and the Mexicans. You get on board with these niggas and the Mexicans don't keep messing up this potluck. If they bring one more batch of tamales to the potluck, I swear to God. So we pretend to feel a certain way and do not. But the one great thing about it is that's why ultimately to me comedy is more relevant than it ever has been before, because now everybody's trying to bring it to heel. Listen, it's like if you want to deal with wild animals, like there are certain animals, and it's my favorite tattoo. The lion and the tiger are more powerful, but the wolf never performs in the circus. There's certain animals that you're like, nah. I know you making that lion do what you want. I know you doing. I think that you doing that to the tiger. You hit me with that whip, I'm gonna tear chunk your ass up. And I think sometimes you can hire comedians and you can want a certain thing, but sometimes your dog takes a shit on the floor or bites somebody.
Mike Epps posted something on Instagram last month, which I found kind of interesting. It has a picture of Richard Pryor. And, it's got him thinking, it's got like a little quote by him and said, I would have never made it as a comedian today trying to tell jokes to you sensitive motherfuckers.
True.
Do you think if Richard Pryor came out today that he would have made it with this environment?
I think that you could say that about a lot of things. I think that I don't think Reagan would be a Republican. I don't think Richard would be. I think when you look at what we used to laugh at and what we don't now, could you imagine doing All in the Family now? No.
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing the Jeffersons now? No. Or MASH now? MASH had a character called Spear Chucker Jones on the fucking show. Spear Chucker Jones. Yeah, look it up. Spear Chucker Jones. Google Spear Chucker Jones. It was
about to.
Google Spear Chucker Jones. He was the black running back and they called him Spear Chucker Jones. A Spear Chucker's nigga. Jigaboo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's a racial slur.
Yep. And it was called Spear Chucker Jones on MASH. Do you remember when Red Fox was in the middle of the court and said, he said, all these black people, don't you ever arrest white people? He said, I arrest white people all the time. He said, you do? Well, where they at? It's enough niggas in here to make a Tarzan movie. You could never do that now.
Well, yeah, I mean, remember Eddie Murphy, his Raw and Delirious, faggot ass faggot and stuff like that. Imagine you saying that in your Netflix special.
It wouldn't. Well, first off, you would have a corporate entity that would take it off. Like, cause Netflix, they used to, they now they've kind of they've had some negative experience with some of the things that they've said and done. So I didn't really too much have that problem. But what about there was a song called Chuck Berry had called My Ding-a-Ling. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Play that now. Play it now. And that's where we are right now. I am not, and I'm getting ready to run out of here and do something wrong, but I'll tell you this. I am not beholden to your idea of me, your expectations of me. your desires for me. I'm beholden to my artistic vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that is, I'm not, everything else, I'm guessing. The only thing I'm an expert in is me.
What's your take on this whole King of R&B debate?
That's so dumb,
That's
it's
all.
ridiculous. First off, you gotta have more than one song. Second, and you have to have gone through more than one device. To be the king of something, you gotta reign a long time. You gotta go through CDs and 8-tracks and 45s and LPs. If your ass got a ringtone, you pretty much will never be in a conversation. It's all you got is a ringtone.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Jackson, you could say was the king when he died.
Was.
You could say that Prince took over that job.
You could say Marvin Gaye.
Even though it was debatable.
There are a lot of people you can say. What you can't say about is a dude that got a fucking ringtone.
I think the funniest part of the whole debate is when Jay Holiday made the video, and then someone mistook him for a valet.
All right, listen up, man. This is from one R&B singer to the rest of y'all motherfuckers, man. Listen here. And this is some real shit from my heart. That bullshit that man said, there's 3 kings of R&B. The first one sold 20 million on his first album. I'm not valet, baby. Not with a Gucci jacket on. I'm not valet, baby. The second king of R&B is from Chicago. And the third one is from Tappahannock. 4 and 5 right here.
The nerve of these
The nerve of these.
Tank got so upset about that, he put his shirt on. So it was crazy. Hey, man,
He said, a valet don't wear all this Gucci. This Gucci?
Hey, man, I got
But
it.
he actually put that out,
did.
man. The fact that he actually released it
Yeah, he did.
was even funnier.
He did.
All right. Well, Deal Hughley, man, always a pleasure.
Likewise, man.
Absolutely watch Contrarian.
Thank you, man.
Watch Contrarian.
Thank you, man.
One of the best stand-ups of the year.
Thank you, man. And you'll find this interesting. I'm writing a new book where I'm going to try to get black people the same protections as animals you hunt. I think black people would be better protected if they were under the protection of fish and game rather than police.
Well, I mean, now that you mentioned that, did you hear about PETA?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me actually pull this up. Yeah, because they compared anti-animal phrases to racism.
Yeah.
Like bringing home the bacon is the equivalent of calling a black man the N-word.
Yeah, except the bacon was never slaves and never had their children sold off and never were denied the right to vote and live. They were raised for one specific thing. They actually were animals. We were considered animals. But the interesting thing, you remember after that Charleston, South Carolina, the church at Mother Emanuel Church, where those 9 people were killed by Dylann Roof. You know what happened 2 weeks after that? Cecil the Lion was killed by that dentist in, was it Minnesota? Cecil the Lion was killed. You know what happened as a result of that? They put all this money together and hired rangers, and not one other lion from that pride has been killed. Not one other lion since then. I want Cecil the nigga to have the same protections as Cecil the Lion. So I'm excited about writing that book.
No doubt, man. I can't wait. The last one was great, man.
Thank you, man. Always good to see you.
The last book was great. Absolutely.
We do this
man.
every
Until next
quarter,
time.
so I'll see you next quarter.
Next quarter. I love it.
All right, V.
My man.
You look skinny, man.
Peace. Hey, I'm working out. You know what I mean?
Or you wearing
40s.
black.
I mean, I'm
It
in
could
my
be
40s.
black.
Yeah, I'm wearing black also. But yeah, no, I'm eating healthier. I'm a pescatarian, mostly.
Get the fuck out of here. I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. You know what? For black holidays, there's a lot of stuff. We are very accepted. You could be gay, you could be lesbian, you could be an atheist. The one thing you can't be is a vegan or a pescatarian. You gotta be we can't love you if you ain't eat no meat.
I will. I'll be unloved then. I'll take that.
All right, V.
I'll be alive and unloved.
There you go.
My man.
Take
Till
care,
next
baby.
time.
See you soon.
Peace.